The truth bombs contained within this video are so powerful and threatening that the last time they were heard on the internet, it took a supercomputer 35 minutes of frantic activity to shut it down. Foolish supercomputers. Didn't anyone tell them?
Can't stop the signal, Mel.
Whole system ready.
Hi, this is State Representative Nino Vitale. We're here today to talk about oxygen deprivation and mask usage.
Oh, that sounds scary and terrifying. I'm so glad that there are people like the Ohio House of Representatives with members like Nino Vitale here to explain it all in what I'm sure will be a diligent and well-researched manner that I'm sure won't end up in medical advice on a par with the stupidity of saying, remember, before you play with a gun, always look down the barrel to check it's clear of bullets. It's the only way to be safe. Oh yes, what you're about to witness here is one of the biggest fails you will ever see. To the point where our congressman here is going to need an awfully big runner.
What we have here is an instant oxygen sensor. This senses different types of gases, and if it senses anything above or below the normal level, this GX 2009 made by RKI, you can look up this.
Okay, let's take a quick look at that. So there's, what do we got? We got a front buzzer on it, we got a top buzzer on it, and the bottom there, you've got 4 gas detectors, one for hydrogen sulfide, one for carbon monoxide, one for low explosive limit, and an oxygen meter. And those are the 4 gas detectors on the bottom.
Unit will beep and it will tell us if there's a problem. Now, as you can see, 19.5% is what OSHA recommends as safe.
Yes, OSHA, a government health body. You know, the sort of folks who might recommend wearing a mask in a pandemic.
And we're going to bring in our first student because, of course, the public health experts are recommending that we have, you can come in, that we have our students wear masks. So
oh, yes, those dastardly public health officials advising wearing masks in the middle of a pandemic. You know, just as America is hitting peak cases, I'm sure they're going to get served hard by this politician who can operate a gas meter with the skill and proficiency of a potato.
We're going to take the GX 2009, we're going to put it up inside the mask and just have our student breathe normally here and see if it starts to... Okay, you can see that this started to beep right away. It's lower than that at 17.0. So again, 19.5, and you can see how quickly that was. Thank you. We're going to bring in student number 2.
Oh no, that's terrifying. I'm not quite sure how a mask can suddenly suck oxygen out of the air. Surely he's not going to be able to repeat this.
This is the 3M N95 mask. A little harder to get this in because this one's a little smaller mask, but do your best to put this up underneath your mask here, where you breathe there, and we'll see what happens. Again, oh, okay, there we go. Okay, there's the peak of 18.1. So almost immediately, this is dropping below what is considered safe by OSHA.
And boom, it was just that easy for a politician to show something that every single doctor on the planet had missed somehow. Well, that, or maybe, just maybe, he's an idiot.
It's just your standard surgical mask. Number 3 here, just put it up under his mask and just try to put the mask back as best. Okay. Thank you. All right, and okay, that one, 17.6.
Good. Twice the pride, double the fall.
So as you can see, the 19.5 is what OSHA considers the danger level. And on all 3 of the tests, we did a straight surgical mask, we did an N95 mask, and we did a very thin mask of the first student.
What? No, not the thin masks. Even the thin masks can deplete the oxygen in the atmosphere.
That's great. I mean, this is basically, this was the first one. This is very thin material, and it's still trapping and lowering the oxygen level.
That's impossible, but it's terrifying that he's shown it.
Again, GX 2009, made by RKI Industries. Anybody can do this test. Almost instantly, the oxygen levels drop below the danger zone.
Hey, genius. I'm not sure how long you've been alive, but you might have noticed by now that every few seconds or so over your life, you've had to do this thing called breathing. And the reason you got to breathe is because you need oxygen from the air. And if your lungs are absorbing oxygen, that means that the air that you breathe out is going to be depleted of oxygen.
Okay, that one, 17.6.
Typically, on your scale here, by about 5%. Yes, our genius politician here has concluded that masks are dangerous to wear in the middle of a pandemic because humans have lungs.
We're here today to talk about oxygen deprivation and mask usage.
Bravo, Nino. But if you think he's finished yet, not by a long way. This guy has perfected turning stupidity into an art form.
Hi, we're here again with the GX 2009 oxygen sensor, and I just want to show people that when you, we tested those masks, when you hold this up to your mouth, you can see how close I'm holding this and I'm talking directly into it. It is not going off.
You sure about that, Nino? Scientists seem to be kind of a consensus that humans need oxygen to live.
So we want to make sure that we aren't misleading people. If you look at the video, you'll notice that when we had the students with the masks on and put this inside their mask, it was actually off to the side. So
naturally, in the pursuit of diligence, you decided to replicate that, right?
What I'm doing now is breathing directly in, talking directly into this as if it were a microphone. There's sensors on the top and sides, front and sides of this. So
it's at times like this you really have to ask yourself, is he naturally this stupid or does he practice? Yes, our congressman is now showing us that when he breathes out, he hasn't absorbed any oxygen whatsoever.
Ruprecht, don't take the cork off the fork.
Why is the cork on the fork?
Now that would mean that Nino Vitali here has no metabolism.
To prevent him hurting himself and others.
That's either he's one of those aliens from the Department of Defense videos, or he's already brain dead, which might go to explaining his current behaviour. Now, oddly enough, the fact that he's not absorbing any oxygen here doesn't seem to bother him. You know, as maybe something he should see a doctor about. But on the bright side, it did show that when all those other people were exhaling and causing the alarm to go off, it wasn't anything to do with them breathing out. Except, no, our genius politician here is quite happily breathing out into the front buzzer.
And I just want to show people that when you, we tested those masks, when you hold this up to your mouth, you can see how close I'm holding this and I'm talking directly into it.
And wondering why there are no signs of depleted oxygen. The representative here is doing the metaphoric equivalent of incoherently rambling at your toaster. No, your unplugged toaster. And then concluding that computers must be bad for your health because potato. And it goes without saying that his Facebook is the stuff of pure nightmares. Vitali, we need real leaders. Yeah, you do, Vitali. And you could start with one who maybe has an education. I mean, look, what do we got? Faith, family, and freedom. But curiously, nothing about education. I mean, this presumably is his family, who he was doing this amazing scientific experiment with. And not one of them put their hand up and said, Dad, we learnt at school today that humans breathe oxygen and they absorb that oxygen, which means that when they breathe out, the oxygen's going to be depleted. Not one of them worked out that it was their exhaled breath that was actually setting off the oxygen alarm. Nino Vitali, where has our independence gone? We never thought life would change, but it has. They've locked us in our homes, closed churches, and told the police and goon squads to arrest us if we open our business. Where has our independence gone? And most people seem to be just fine with putting on a mask, where the overwhelming scientific evidence shows that masks actually do harm. But of course, most people wouldn't know that because the media and politicians constantly propagandize people into wearing them with no scientific backing. And with many studies that exist that show by actual research that masks can be harmful are banned, blocked, and shamed.
We tested those masks. When you hold this up to your mouth, you can see how close I'm holding this and I'm talking directly into it.
Yeah, they are, Nino. And for very, very good reason. And what's he got in his hashtags? Masks do harm. Masks do not work. No contact tracing. I mean, Jesus, has this guy no concept of what an infectious disease is? But like this, it is small wonder that America is the most infected country in the world. And this is when Nino Vitali is going on about, judge says feds and state do not have the authority to force a person to wear a mask. Great. That's really going to help Mr. Representative. And of course, it goes without saying that the man who couldn't properly breathe in to a clearly labelled oxygen sensor has a gun. What can possibly go wrong? I just hope it's got a clearly labelled trigger. Then, not just happy with that, goes on to breathing into the top buzzer.
What I'm doing now is breathing directly in, talking directly into this as if it were a microphone. There's sensors on the top and sides, front and sides of this. So you can see.
Yes, I can see you not breathing into the sensor.
Again, just talking into this to show that this is a very sensitive instrument. Anybody can get one of these, although they are a little bit expensive, and try it for themselves.
Now, an idiot recommending that you do something detrimental to your health, kind of against the YouTube terms of service. But then again, faith healers do it all the time, as does alternative medicine.
Do you know what they call alternative medicine that's been proved to work? Medicine.
And okay, YouTube did actually take down some videos of conspiracy nutters for putting out recommendations that would endanger people's lives during a pandemic. So I'm not quite sure where the congressman falls on this spectrum. But then again, I mean, you take a look at it, you've got the president saying things like this.
With a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light. And I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do, either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting.
And it doesn't seem to faze people that much.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
But anyway, in this case, there's actually a pretty decent argument that the representative here isn't actually that much of an idiot, but is actually deliberately misleading people here.
So we want to make sure that we aren't misleading people.
You see, the weird thing is, he does 3 tests with masks.
We're going to take the GX 2009, we're going to put it up inside the mask and just have...
And in each and every one of those tests, the gas sensor miraculously ends up right next to the mouth. Every single test, gas sensor right next to the mouth. Right up until the point where Nino Vitali here is trying to prove that it's not just breathing on it that makes the oxygen sensor go off, at which point he breathes on every single part of the device except the actual sensor. Yeah, what are the chances of the man with religious objections to wearing a mask suddenly randomly making all these mistakes? And if you're wondering what his objections are, they are, of course, that we are made in God's image, and therefore wearing a mask is blasphemy?
When we think about the image and likeness of God, that we're created in the image and likeness of God, when we think of image, do we think of a chest or our legs or our arms? We think of their face. I don't want to cover people's faces, Jim. That's the image of God right there, and I want to see it in my brothers and sisters. This is a very sensitive instrument. Anybody can get one of these, although they are a little bit expensive, and try it for themselves.
Yeah, sure, let's do that. In fact, let's do that on steroids. Now, that's a cute little oxygen sensor you got there. What does it measure? Hydrogen sulfide. That's the gas that smells like rotten eggs. Not much use here. Carbon monoxide. That's the hugely toxic, odorless gas, which kills you by binding very strongly to your hemoglobin. Not to be confused with carbon dioxide. Ballpark figures 1% of carbon monoxide will basically block up all your hemoglobin and kill you in about an hour. Whereas 10% carbon dioxide is pretty uncomfortable and will kill you eventually. And while we're on that, guess what Nino doesn't know the difference between?
Measurements. And we're just going to take it down here. If you could bring the camera down closer a little bit here. And then when we set this, you can see how quickly this starts to go off. You can see how bad and how quickly that gets. So you can see here's the peak, 52 on the CO2.
Except that's not carbon dioxide, that's carbon monoxide. The carbon dioxide in the air that you're breathing is 400 parts per million. You wouldn't get an alarm going off at 50 parts per million.
52 on the CO2.
Now, it turns out way back when I was debunking the breatharians, the folks that claim that they don't need food to live.
This is the kitchen of a breatharian. For 63 days, this woman has, she claims, gone without any food whatsoever, apart from fish stock tea with a dash of cider vinegar. Living on light. And how long did you go without eating?
Well, pretty well just on water and tea for 2 years.
And did you lose weight?
No, because I treat the body as a biocomputer.
So this is called breatharianism. As it becomes a habit, in other words, eating is an acquired habit, just like drinking alcohol or smoking cigarettes.
Mm-hmm. I am nourished by prana, as old Eastern religion did believe that there is a prana in the air, or chi energy or something like that.
There are actually level 4 breatharians, and that means that they actually go without food and without water. Now, how is this possible? How it's feasible? Our DNA is actually more open, more wide, and more complex than that of a tree. I'm not going to go into the how because it's really, really hard to explain. Plus, it requires an understanding that is beyond science and biology.
Where are they getting their sustenance from if they're not getting it from food?
I know that I am nourished, and I am nourished probably very, very well, much better than I was nourishing myself.
Ki, the chi, the universal life force, or what we call prana, or if you're a religious person, you would say you are fed by the light of God, and obviously that's very hard to measure.
That's the image of God right there, and I want to see it in my brothers and sisters.
All they need is to breathe to be able to live. Now that can be debunked very quickly just by asking them to breathe out, and if they're breathing out carbon dioxide, well, that carbon dioxide came out because their bodies are burning sugar. You're breathing in oxygen, it's burning the sugar in your body, and you're breathing out carbon dioxide. You're literally burning away with every single breath. Which is why you've got to keep eating, otherwise you starve to death. And this is one of the reasons why we all have mouths. And it's an interesting question. If we are made in the image of God, it's not so much what would God need with the starship.
Just like to ask a question. What does God need with a starship?
As what would God need with a cake?
How's the diet going?
That's the image of God right there, and I want to see it in my brothers and sisters.
Anyway, while making the Breatharian Busted video, I actually got a fairly decent carbon monoxide and oxygen data logger.
Okay, so what you got here is a carbon dioxide meter and an oxygen meter. So anyway, you can see that the oxygen's cruising at about 21%, and the carbon dioxide's still a bit high because I just breathed on the meter. So here I have a bag of my exhaled breath. So first of all, I'm going to start this running. And then I'm going to stick my carbon dioxide meter in first. Like that. And then my oxygen meter in second. So there you should have both of the meters in my exhale breath. And what you'll find is the oxygen meter responds much more quicker than the carbon dioxide meter.
Fairly expensive, fairly accurate, but very slow. Takes a long time to give you an equilibrated reading. Now, at the time I wanted to do some more experiments that would require a little bit more sophisticated kit. I wanted to measure metabolism in real time. And for that, you would require some super fast, super accurate gas measurements. And the piece of kit that I got also turns out to be almost perfect for determining if masks really do deplete the oxygen.
Awesome. So here we have absolutely everything. This down here is the mass spectrometer, and that up there is actually the dynamic analysis that it's currently doing of the air. So let's just zoom in. You see it's got nitrogen, carbon dioxide, argon and oxygen. And the scale's a bit weird. So it's a sort of quasi-logarithmic scale. So we've got a few hundred parts per million carbon dioxide, that's the bottom there. This is argon, which is a steady 1%. This is the oxygen, which is about 20%, and this is the nitrogen at about 80%. So what that's doing is it's sucking air in through here. So what I'm going to do is just going to take my little tube here, and I'm just going to breathe through it a few times. So I breathe out. So this is sort of fairly typical. What you'll see is there's a huge spike in carbon dioxide, and if this was calibrated properly, this goes up to about 5%. And there is also about a 5% depletion in oxygen at about the same time. And of course argon doesn't do anything, neither does nitrogen really. And just to prove that is really what's going on here I've got some carbon dioxide. And if I just let some carbon dioxide into the sensor, you'll see that it goes absolutely ballistic. Cool. So what's going on here is it's sucking gas in through this pipe here that's going into there, and then it's ionizing the molecules and weighing them essentially. And the weight gives me the analysis here. So let's just take a quick look inside the machine here. So this costs some $20,000. You've got a big turbo pump in the middle here. This is just a vacuum gauge. This is the roughing pump. This is the mass spectrometer at the back here. And this down here is where the gas comes in. So the gas comes in, it's kind of ionized, and it's weighed down here. That does mean that we can analyze the gas that comes into this more or less completely. But in order to do that, we've got to go into a different mode of the mass spectrometer where we just look at the raw data basically coming in. So what you see there is that's the atomic mass at the bottom, and this is the signal that you're getting from it. So air, to a very good approximation, is 20% oxygen, 80% nitrogen, and this is a current rating. That's basically how many molecules are there, kinda, not directly, and it's a logarithmic scale, so each one of these is worth an order of magnitude. So Yeah, if you go up to here and you drop down to there, you're at 10%, 1%, 1 part in 1,000, and so forth. So this goes very quickly down in size, which is why this is nitrogen here at 28. That's nitrogen. This is oxygen here at 32. This is carbon dioxide, molecular weight 44. That's that one. And this is going to be argon, who is the molecular weight here at about 40. And sometimes when it ionizes these things, it can either get 2 charges on a nitrogen molecule, which means the molecular weight doesn't come out as 28, it comes out as 14, which is that one there. Or it can be oxygen, which is 16 there, or this is water at 18 here. And this is some residual carbon. You know, occasionally these carbon dioxide molecules will break up and you'll get a carbon in there. Which means that if I now breathe in here, so I'm going to wait till it gets to the end of the scan, then I'm going to breathe in here. So that's carbon, depletion in oxygen, and that's the extra carbon dioxide in what I'm breathing out. So that's more or less the raw of what you're looking at with this mass spectrometer. So it's absolutely fantastic in its ability to analyze very small amounts of stuff. So if I just put some carbon dioxide in again, you'll get a huge signal of carbon dioxide. So I've got some argon here, which should increase the peak at about 40, like that. And I got some helium down here on the floor, which should come in as a big peak at about 4. And of course it's depleting all the other peaks because I'm not sucking as much of the rest of the gas in. So again, if I breathe in, this will give us a signal for regular air. And I'm going to breathe out. So that is how we detect the carbon dioxide here. Which brings us on to the fascinating question of, do masks actually deplete oxygen levels? So I'm just going to go through, here I've got it displaying things in terms of percent. I'm just going to do, I don't know, 2 breaths. Okay, that's a fairly natural frequency for breathing. Now I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but with the mask on, and we will see exactly how much is being depleted here. So what you'll notice is there really isn't a big lot of difference of whether you're wearing a mask or not. We can try this with a more serious mask and see what this does for us. So I'm just going to establish the baseline. Now I'm going to try it with a mask.
No, I am your father.
So with this, you could actually argue that there are some signs, well, I mean, it's certainly different than with the N95 mask. The weird thing is, this is actually much more comfortable to breathe in. And I think the main reason is it's basically all down to humidity. So when you're breathing in and out through this thing, it feels less comfortable. Because what tends to happen is as you breathe out, water can condense in here, which means that when you breathe in again, the air starts to feel humid, which makes it feel stuffy. Even though you can see from the gas analysis that it's basically no different. However, with this thing, when you breathe out, it comes out the hole in the front here. Which means that this feels much cleaner and easier to breathe in, even though it looks different on the gas analysis here. And it's a bizarre thing that, you know, a large portion of why you wear masks isn't to protect you, it's to protect other people. That if I'm coughing out, you know, virus particles, this will stop almost all of them, you know, 99.99 something of them, because it gets coughed out in little droplets, they get stopped very effectively. When the virus is already sort of in an aerosol, they're probably not as effective. But that also means that this mask is kind of stupid for the coronavirus, because whilst it's very good at filtering, when I breathe out,
Oh, you think darkness is your ally?
I breathe out through the hole in the front, which is unfiltered. Yeah, there's a little valve in there. So when I breathe out, the air coming out is unfiltered, which means that this wouldn't stop me spreading the coronavirus as efficiently as this mask here. That being said, these things are mostly sold. These, it turns out, are actually organic filters that are mostly to get paint fumes out of the air. You can stick air particulate filters on here. I'm not bothered in this case. This thing is perfectly easy to breathe in. This feels much cleaner to breathe in than this. This feels a little stuffy. This much less so, although of course if you're trying not to spread the virus, this is far superior.
Now, if you listen to Nino, he bangs on about the OSHA safety standards.
19.5% is what OSHA recommends as safe. Low, what is considered safe by OSHA. 19.5 is what OSHA considers the danger level, where 19.5 is OSHA regulated minimums for oxygen. OSHA says the level at 19.5 or below is unsafe and dangerous.
That's the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Now, OSHA safety standards say 20% is fine, and you get down a few percent and you're in the danger zone, which is kind of dumb if you understand that it's the oxygen that you need out of the air. Awesome. So this here is a pretty decent molecular dynamics simulation of air. It's blown up about 1 billion times, such that you can actually see the molecules have slowed time down an awful lot. Those molecules there are actually hammering around at about the speed of bullets, about the speed of sound. So the air is about 20% oxygen. Those are the red ones. That's the stuff that you absolutely need to live. If you don't get about a gram of oxygen out of the air every minute, you die pretty quickly. Then most of what you're actually breathing is nitrogen. Those are the blue ones. It's about 80% nitrogen and it's about 1% argon, give or take. Now, if you put a face in here somewhere, it's going to get impacted by molecules. And each one of those molecular impacts exerts essentially the same force averaged over time. So the total number of collisions is the pressure, the number of impacts per second. But we can break that down into the various gases. So 80% of those impacts come from nitrogen. So we can say that the partial pressure of nitrogen is the total pressure, which is 1 atmosphere, times by the percent of the gas that is nitrogen, which is 80%. So the partial pressure of nitrogen is about 0.8 atmospheres. Partial pressure of oxygen is 0.2 atmospheres. And that's the number that is absolutely critical. So I can take you from 1 atmosphere of pressure up to something that's a little nearer space. I'm going to reduce the pressure by 9/10. So this is the pressure, the atmospheric pressure you would have somewhat above Mount Everest. And you'll be happy to know this complies perfectly with OSHA safety standards because it is 20% oxygen, 80% nitrogen.
Where 19.5 is OSHA regulated minimums for oxygen.
So if you were to have a vacuum chamber here on Earth.
This is NASA's Space Power Facility near Cleveland, Ohio, and it is the world's biggest vacuum chamber. It's used to test spacecraft in the conditions of outer space.
And you would pump it down. This is basically the atmosphere that you would have, and it would comply perfectly with the OSHA safety standards. You see, the thing that is really critical, and if you go into the details, OSHA does understand some of this, it's just they kind of simplify it for people like our representative here. The thing that is absolutely critical is the partial pressure of oxygen, not the percent of oxygen in the air. So the partial pressure of oxygen in the air that you're breathing is 0.2 atmospheres. So I can actually reduce the atmospheric pressure by 80%. I can get rid of all of the nitrogens, and the partial pressure of oxygen is exactly the same. So the partial pressure of oxygen here is 0.2 atmospheres. Partial pressure of oxygen here is 0.2 atmospheres. So I could live quite happily in this atmosphere because my lungs are geared up for getting oxygen out of this sort of concentration of gas molecules per unit volume. In fact, this is not far off the atmosphere that they had in the Apollo spacecraft when they went to the moon. So initially they were going to run it at 1 atmosphere of oxygen when they were taking off. That turned out to be suicidal. So if you have 1 atmosphere of pure oxygen, things burn like crazy. But if you have a 20% partial pressure of oxygen, things burn about as well as they would here on Earth. So in the end, to make the spacecraft lighter and such that it wouldn't have to hold as much pressure, the Apollo spacecraft, once it got into space, it mostly depressurized the cabin such that it was running on about 0.2 atmospheres of pure oxygen. Which brings us back to Vitaly here.
19.5% is what OSHA recommends as safe. Low, what is considered safe by OSHA?
The percentage is almost irrelevant. Now, I've lived in a lot of places in the United States. When I was a kid, I lived on the high plains of New Mexico.
Oh man, does this ever bring back fond memories?
Altitude, about 1,500 meters, some 5,000 feet, by which time the atmosphere is significantly thinner. In fact, you've lost about 20% of the atmosphere. The partial pressure of oxygen is down from some 0.2 of an atmosphere to 0.16 of an atmosphere. And I quite happily lived there for a year, as do millions of people at the moment. Hell, this is the second highest mountain in the lower 48, Mount Elbert. This is the top of Mount Elbert. And by the time you're up at the top of that thing, you've lost about 40% of the atmosphere. The partial pressure of oxygen is down to about 0.12 atmospheres.
19.5 is what OSHA considers the danger level.
The bottom line is, even if the representative was right here, which he's not, and he genuinely had found a drop in the oxygen concentration from 20% to 16%, let's just say for sake of argument, that means that the partial pressure of oxygen there is about the same as the mean elevation in states like Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, New Mexico, Nevada, Idaho, and Arizona. So that, my friends, is the story of Nino Vitali, the man who recommended that people not wear masks just as the United States was hitting peak cases. No, because masks are dangerous. Really, he proved it with science.
See how close I'm holding this and I'm talking directly into it. It is not going off.
Kind of makes you wonder what he's going to do for an encore. You know, taking shelter during an air raid is dangerous. Wearing a seatbelt is dangerous. Washing your hands after handling raw chicken is dangerous. And of course, if you're jumping out of a plane, don't use a parachute. They can be dangerous. And for those of you who want to know why this video was originally taken down by YouTube, well, it was automatically flagged by the AI, which is why it was taken down in only 35 minutes. It wasn't flagged by Nino Vitali. So he's kind of off the hook there. But what I can also tell you is his video was taken down at about the same time. Now, my guess is what happened here is someone looked at his video and said, yeah, that's kind of screwed up. And so they took his video down, and then the AI automatically takes down anything that looks kind of like that. I got mixed feelings about this. You know, I don't like people giving advice that'll end up getting people killed. But I don't like people getting banned either. Then there has to be a line somewhere here. But the reality is, Trump has said more harmful things than this, you know, about hydroxychloroquine and all that sort of thing. Faith healers do it all the time. Hell, half the stuff that I debunk would kill people if they trusted their lives to it. So there is legitimately a grey area here. Anyway, before I knew any of that, I had appealed to YouTube, who almost immediately rejected my appeal. My guess is that was actually an AI too. Then I contacted YouTube directly, you know, via a chat messenger thing. Lots of wait a moment, which I'm guessing was them actually just watching the first bit of my video to see, you know, why is this being taken down? And then they said, okay, we'll escalate this, and that I should just wait a few days. So I waited a few days and nothing happened. So I put up a video and, you know, explaining what was going on. I waited a few more days, still nothing happened. So I contacted them again and they said, yeah, maybe next week. At that point, I just suggested, look, maybe it's just going to be easier for me to re-edit the video. Who knows? This time it might not push the AI's buttons, you know, especially if it's been maybe tweaked or updated or something. Boom, everyone's happy. My subscribers get to see the video. I get to actually get my video up a week late. And YouTube don't have to worry about anything because there was nothing flagged up by the AI. YouTube chatman was clearly a little maybe unhappy about this. You know, it sounds a bit like trying to circumnavigate the things there that aren't currently working, but don't worry about that. So he was very standoffish, you know, well, if you do that, it's your responsibility. So I asked him, well, if I do just wait for the appeal to go through and I do win it, well, will anyone actually know my video is up then? You know, will my subscribers be notified that that video's up? Because it's been almost a week. And he was, he didn't think they would. So there was this awkward silence in the chat room as it became bloody obvious that there was actually no point in this appeal thing at all, in that, you know, even if I win, all I'm going to have to do is take the video down, then re-upload it, because otherwise no one will actually know that it's up there. So I decided, whatever, I'll give it a little bit of editing, and if you're watching this, then boom, that's it. You have the latest busting video. So if you enjoyed that, I'd be grateful if you give this video a thumbs up, and if you don't want to miss out on new uploads like this, you can hit the notification bell below. And if you really like this channel and want to support it directly, you can do it through Patreon. And thanks for watching.